Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in every person's life when the clouds of confusion gather, when the winds of doubt howl louder than the voice of faith. And in that moment, it's easy to believe that you've been forgotten, that the struggle is for nothing, that the struggle is for nothing. But I want to tell you something. Listen closely. When life seems to be at its hardest, when doors slam shut and silence answers your prayers, it is often the moment just before something big is about to be given to you. You see, life does not hand out greatness to the one who merely wishes. It waits. It tests the things that are most worth having do not come by accident. They come through the fire, through resistance, through persistence. The universe, God, whatever name you give the force that breathes life into dreams, does not give anything of value without asking you to go first. The dream you carry, the one that keeps you up at night, the one that whispers in your quiet moments, is not just yours by chance. It was planted in your heart because you have what it takes to bring it into reality. But there is a process, and that process often begins with a storm. It may look like failure. It may feel like betrayal. You might lose friends. Opportunities may dry up. The people you counted on might disappear. But don't you see? That's part of the preparation. When the soil is being broken, it's because something is being planted. When you're being stripped of what you no longer need, it's because something better is being prepared. God doesn't shrink your life to punish you. He shrinks it to make room for something greater. There's a reason champions are born out of adversity. There's a reason why the mountain comes before the view. God gives the big things to those who have proven they can carry them. And before he blesses you with something that could change your life forever, he will make sure you are not the kind of person who drops the blessing at the first sign of hardship. So when you are exhausted but still moving, when you are uncertain but still trying, when everything in you wants to quit but something keeps you holding on, that's when the breakthrough is closest. That's when the test is almost over. That's when God is about to give you something big. And he's waiting to see if you're ready. The world may not see it yet, but you feel it, that fire in your chest, that restless energy, that unshakable knowing. It's not just imagination. It's alignment. It's purpose. And it's calling you to keep going. Because the people who receive the big things are not the ones who never struggle. They're the ones who refuse to stop believing, even when they have every reason to give up. Stay in the fight. Your blessing is closer than it seems. And so if you wake up in the morning with heaviness in your chest, you go through the motions of the day, not because you feel strong, but because something inside of you refuses to die. That's something to call it faith, call it grit, divine stubbornness, is a signal. It's the mark of someone being forged, not forgotten. When God is preparing to hand you something that has the power to change your life, he doesn't just give it to you wrapped in a bow. He wraps it in lessons, in trials, in days where you feel invisible, in nights where your tears water the seed of the very thing you've been praying for. Most people look at the struggle and assume they're being punished. But those who understand how growth works, those who have tasted the tension between where they are and where they're going, know better. They know that when the pressure increases, when things seem to fall apart at once, when old relationships dissolve and new paths aren't yet visible, that's not the end. That's transition. That's elevation. That's divine preparation disguised as chaos. You see, it's easy to want something big. It's easy to say, I'm ready. But are you ready to be shaped into the kind of person who can hold it, protect it, grow it, and not lose yourself along the way? Because big blessings require deep roots, and God doesn't just hand out greatness like candy. He builds it piece by piece inside of you, through your disappointments, through your delays, through the seasons when it looks like nothing is happening at all. But something is happening, always, in the invisible, in the quiet, in the parts of you that no one sees. Your patience is being strengthened. Your discipline is being molded. Your resilience is being crafted so that when the time comes, you don't just receive the blessing, you rise with it. You meet it at the level of your growth. And this is where most people fall off. They stop too soon. They walk away right before the breakthrough. I think this means a no. Realizing that silence is often just the sound of something being built behind the scenes. Think a tree growing under the surface before it ever breaks through the soil. Like a dream taking root in your character before it ever manifests in your hands. When God is about to give you something big, he'll first ask you to trust him with nothing. He'll let you stand in an empty field and ask you to believe in a harvest you can't see yet. He'll strip away your safety net so you can learn how to walk by faith, not by sight. Because the blessing is not just about what you'll receive, it's about who you become in the waiting. There's a version of you on the other side of this season that is wiser, stronger, more focused, more grateful, more grateful. That version of you will be ready for what's coming. But you don't get to skip the middle. You don't get to fast forward through the ache. You don't get to avoid the nights when you question everything. Because those nights teach you to lean in. They teach you to listen differently. They teach you to stop chasing the approval of people who never understood your vision to begin with. Something strange begins to happen when you stop fighting the process and start trusting it. You start to find peace in places where you once felt panic. You start to feel strength even while you're still in the storm. You begin to understand that this moment, this pressure, this uncertainty is not your prison. It's your passage. People around you may not understand what's happening. They may say you're crazy for holding on. They might laugh at your dreams, minimize your vision, talk behind your back. Let them. Because if they could see what God was preparing for you, they'd be silent. If they could feel the shift in the air around you, they'd know you're not delusional. You're discerning. So keep going. Keep showing up for yourself when no one else claps. Keep planting seeds in the dark when no one else believes in your soil. Keep praying even when your voice cracks. Keep walking even when the road disappears. Because it's in those moments, the ones that break you open, that your greatest strength is revealed. Every great story has a chapter that looks like defeat. Every hero has a moment where quitting seems logical, but they don't, and neither will you. Because there's something in your spirit that's bigger than the pain you're walking through. You weren't made to shrink. You weren't made to settle. You were made to settle. You were made to rise. Sometimes rising looks like simply refusing to quit. It looks like putting one foot in front of the other when your legs feel heavy. It looks like saying, I don't know how, but I believe something good is coming, even when all signs point to the opposite. That kind of belief, that fierce, unshakable hope is what opens doors that no man can shut. The delay is not denial. The detour is not a dead end. What you're walking through is not the end of the story. It's the part that makes the ending worth reading. Because when the blessing comes, and it won't be a random event. It will be the result of everything you endured, everything you learned, everything you refused to give up on. It will feel right not because it was easy, but because you became someone who could receive it fully. So many people pray for elevation, but they run when the ground starts shaking. What they don't realize is that the shaking isn't a sign of failure. It's the sound of foundations being broken so something stronger can be built. God is not just giving you a blessing. He's giving you a legacy. He's preparing something that will not only bless you, but everyone connected to you. That's why the process takes time. That's why the pressure feels personal. Too much what's being developed in you is too big for shortcuts, too important to be remembered. And one day soon, you'll look back on this season, the waiting, the wondering, the nights you cried yourself to sleep, and you'll see it for what it really was, not a punishment, but a preparation, not a failure, but a forming. And you'll realize that everything you thought was holding you back was actually positioning you for something far greater than you imagined. The version of you that emerges will walk with a quiet kind of power.
Not loud, not flashy, but unshakable.
Because you will know deep in your bones that when God was about to give you something big, he didn't forget you, hate you. He was preparing you. You will carry yourself differently when you've been through the fire and didn't let it consume you. You'll speak with a conviction that no book, no seminar, no second-hand experience could ever give you, because you lived it. You breathed through the moments that tried to suffocate your hope. You stood still when everything around you said run. And in doing so, you learned something the world cannot teach. You learned the rhythm of divine timing. It's easy to envy someone who already has what you're working for. It's tempting to scroll through the highlight reels of other people's lives and wonder why you're still in the middle of your process. But you must understand, nothing truly meaningful arrives without a cost. That success you see, that peace someone else walks in, they paid for it. Maybe not with money, but with time, with sacrifice, with invisible battles you'll never see. And just the same, your blessing is accumulating interest in silence. Every tear, every rejection, every setback is compounding into a harvest so rich it will outlast the season that brought you to your knees. You can't afford to measure progress with your eyes alone. If you only trust what you can see, you'll abandon the promise in the dark. And yet most of the work God does happens where nobody can see. It happens inside your mindset, in your discipline, in your ability to walk by faith when logic says turn around. It happens in the slow rewiring of your perspective and the breaking of old cycles and the gentle but firm unlearning of things that once kept you small. This is why people who survive deep valleys are different. They don't need to talk loud about their journey because their presence says it all. They're steady. They're rooted. They don't flinch at the first sign of resistance because they know what it took to become who they are. And they know that anything truly worthwhile will cost you some comfort. It will cost you your ego. It will cost you your old self. But the reward is always greater than the loss. Sometimes the biggest blessing isn't the thing you receive. It's the person you become while waiting for it. God could give you what you want instantly, but what good would it do if you weren't able to handle it with wisdom and care? What good is a platform if your character can't sustain the weight? What good is success if it separates you from your soul? So no, the delay is not cruelty. It's mercy. It's love wrapped in discipline. It's the hand of something higher protecting you from becoming overwhelmed by a blessing you're not yet ready to carry. That's why the deeper your purpose, the longer the preparation. That's why the more sacred the calling, the heavier the refinement. Because what's being entrusted to you has reached beyond just your life. It will ripple. It will leave fingerprints on people you may never even meet. That's why the storms come. Not to destroy you, but to reveal what's anchored and what's not. To show you what you're still clinging to that can't come with you into the next season. The deeper the roots, the taller the tree can grow. But roots don't grow in sunlight. They grow in darkness under pressure beneath the surface. And so do you. When you begin to see life that way, everything changes. You stop panicking in the waiting room. You stop comparing your timeline to everyone else's. You stop asking, oh, why me? And start asking, what is this trying to teach me? Because every season has something to teach you, and if you're wise, you'll extract the lesson instead of resisting the process. Sometimes the lesson is patience. Sometimes it's trust. Sometimes it's knowing when to let go. Sometimes it's learning how to believe without evidence. That's the hardest kind of belief, isn't it? Where there's no sign, no proof, no logical reason to keep going. But kids, that's where real faith lives. Not in the absence of doubt, but in the refusal to let doubt win. There's a version of your life that already exists, one where everything finally aligns. The people, the timing, the opportunities, it's all there waiting for you. But you don't stumble into it. You grow into it. You align with it by becoming the kind of person who doesn't need to force outcomes, who doesn't need to manipulate the timing, who doesn't need validation every step of the way. You align with it by trusting that what's meant for you won't miss you, and what misses you was never meant to stay. That kind of trust isn't passive. It's powerful. It's active faith. It's waking up and doing your part, showing up with integrity, leading with your heart, staying consistent with your work, even when the results haven't shown up yet. It's writing the vision down, even when the page feels empty. It's preparing for the opportunity before it arrives. It's making space for the blessing before you even know how it will come, because that's what faith looks like in real life. It's not just praying, it's preparing. It's not just hoping, it's healing. It's not just speaking it, it's living like you believe it. It's turning down shortcuts. It's staying rooted in your principles when compromise could offer temporary relief. It's doing the hard work when nobody is watching, when there's no applause, when it feels like no one cares. Because eventually, all of that becomes the foundation that supports your elevation. One day, almost quietly, things begin to shift. Not in an explosion, not in a lightning strike, but in a series of subtle alignments. You meet someone who opens a door. An idea drops into your mind that sparks a new direction. A conversation unlocks clarity you didn't even know you needed. And it all feels sudden. But it's not sudden. It's harvest. It's harvest. Station of every quiet, yes. Every painful, no. Every day you didn't give up. You start to see why it took so long. You start to understand why certain people had to leave, why certain plans had to fail. You see the wisdom in the delays, the protection in the closed doors, the perfection in the timing. And you begin to realize that what felt like being buried was actually being planted. What felt like rejection was actually redirection. What felt like silence was actually the sound of grace working behind the scenes. You realized you weren't being punished. You were being trusted with more, with better, with the kind of future that requires everything in you to be fully alive, fully present, fully ready. In that moment when the breakthrough arrives and you stand in the middle of what once felt impossible, you won't need to prove anything. You'll just breathe it in. You'll move with quiet confidence. You'll know that everything you endured wasn't just necessary, it was divine. Because what God gives you after the waiting doesn't just fill your hands. It fills your spirit, it affirms the process, and it leaves you forever changed. There's a sacredness in walking through something and coming out the other side with your heart still open. That kind of strength can't be faked. It can't be taught in a classroom or downloaded from a book. It's built in the hours you wanted to quit, but didn't. It's carved into your soul during the silent battles, the ones where you smiled on the outside but were breaking on the inside. And that's what makes you ready for what's coming. Not your talent, not your connections, not even your intelligence, but your willingness to keep your heart soft in a world that keeps trying to harden it. The world celebrates the loud, the fast, the flashy, but God often moves in the opposite direction. He works in the unseen. He works in the unseen. He whispers when the world shouts. He moves slowly when the world races. And if you're not careful, you'll miss his hand in your life because it doesn't look the way you thought it would. Sometimes the miracle is that you kept going. Sometimes the preparation feels like punishment until the blessing comes and you finally understand that nothing was wasted. You were never behind. You were never forgotten. You were never disqualified. You were being trained in a way that made no sense at the time. You were being pulled back like a slingshot so you could be launched with precision and purpose. That tension, that pressure, that resistance, it was never about holding you down. It was about building the strength you'd need to carry the weight of what you asked for. You learn to trust the timing when you've seen what happens when you rush it. You learn to wait with peace when you remember the times you forced doors open and ended up walking into rooms that weren't meant for you. You learn that not every delay is an attack. Sometimes it's protection. Sometimes it's grace in disguise. Sometimes it's the space God uses to remove what doesn't belong in your next chapter. In that space, something beautiful starts to unfold. You stop trying to control every outcome. You stop needing every detail before you take the next step. You begin to move differently, not recklessly, but fearlessly. You walk with an awareness that even in uncertainty, you're held. You start to see your setbacks as setups. You start to view your failures as lessons, not lessons. You stop asking for the storm to pass and instead ask for the strength to stand in it. That shift, when it happens, is everything. It doesn't make the journey easier, but it makes it clearer. You start to see the purpose in the pattern. You begin to recognize the way this fit together. Even the ones that once felt like mistakes, because now they make sense. Now you see how losing what you thought you needed made room for what you truly needed. Now you understand that closed doors were just redirections disguised as disappointment. And you thank God not only for what he gave, but for what he didn't. Gratitude becomes your fuel, not because everything is perfect, but because you've learned that even the imperfection had a purpose. You don't need everything to make sense anymore. You don't demand constant evidence. You've walked through too much not to trust, and that trust becomes your superpower. It allows you to walk into rooms without fear. It helps you speak truth even when your voice trembles. It gives you peace in the waiting and wisdom in the chaos. It roots you. It's you. And rooted people don't get shaken by every wind that blows. You realize that what you're building now isn't just for you. It's for the people who are watching. The ones you don't even know are paying attention. The ones who will be inspired not by your perfection, but by your persistence. The ones who will say, if they made it through that, maybe I can too. That's legacy. And legacy isn't built in spotlight moments. It's built in the dark, when no one sees the work, the discipline, the choices you make when no one's watching. Every step you take, every sacrifice you make, every moment you choose faith over fear, it adds up. It's creating momentum. It's shifting the atmosphere around you. You may not feel it day to day, but it's happening. Slowly, quietly, powerfully. Until one day, the thing you've been preparing for shows up, and you're not surprised because you've been expecting it. You've been building for it. You've been becoming the version of yourself who can hold it with grace. You'll know it's real, not because it feels like a dream, but because it feels like coming home. You'll walk into opportunities and rooms and relationships and spaces that fit, not because you were lucky, but because you were faithful. And people will look at you and wonder how it all came together. They'll ask what the secret was, and maybe you'll smile, because how do you explain that the secret was not quitting when it would have been easier to stop? You'll carry the blessing without arrogance because you remember what it cost. You'll walk humbly because you know how long it took. And most of all, you'll hold it all with open hands because now you understand that the blessing was never just the destination. It was the process, the people, the pain, the healing, the growth. It was all of it. You'll start to look at others differently, too, with more compassion. You'll see yourself in the eyes of people still in their process. And instead of judging, you'll encourage. You'll remind them that what they're going through isn't the end, that the pressure isn't pointless, that something big could be on the other side of the very battle they're fighting now. Because you'll know, you'll remember, you've been there, and you'll speak from a place of power, not because you never doubted, but because you doubted and still moved forward. You'll have something better than a testimony. You'll have wisdom. You'll have the kind of knowing that can't be shaken by trends or opinions or temporary storms. Maybe you'll wake up one day and realize that the thing you were waiting for, the big thing God was preparing for you, wasn't a title or a paycheck or a platform. Maybe it was peace. Maybe it was purpose. Maybe it was the ability to walk into every room without needing to shrink or prove yourself. Maybe it was the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are and whose you are. In that moment, you won't need applause. You won't crave validation. You'll be content, not because everything is easy, but because everything is aligned. You'll know that you are exactly where you're supposed to be, and that everything leading up to this point, every detour, every delay, every doubt wasn't working against you. It was working for you. That's when you'll finally understand what it means to be ready, not because life is perfect, but because your spirit is steady. And when the next big thing comes, you won't just receive it, you'll carry it. With humility, with gratitude, with the strength of someone who knows what it took to get here. So let this be etched into your heart. When it feels like everything is being taken from you, when the silence gets louder, when the wait feels endless, don't give up. That's the place where something holy is being formed. That's where the shift happens, not outside of you, but within you. Because the greatest blessings aren't just given, they're entrusted. And God only entrusts the big things to those who've proven they won't fold under pressure, won't quit in the dark, and won't forget the process once the light returns. Your time is coming, not because you chased it, but because you prepared for it. And when it arrives, you won't just rise, you'll stand with the quiet power of someone who knows. You didn't stumble into this. You were built for it.